Hey guys, tonight we journey to a place where the sun rises not just over rooftops, but over a lush sprawl of sacred groves, red earth paths, and compounds bustling with life. 500 years ago, in the Yoruba heartland of West Africa, you're not just some visitor either. You are Yoruba. You just woken up on a reed mat inside a round, mud-walled house with a thatched roof thatched, so tight even mosquitoes complain about rent. The air is warm already. It's always warm. You stretch, barefoot on cool earth, and the scent of damp firewood and old smoke greets you before anyone else does. The coals in the hearth still glow dimly from the night before, tucked under ashes like forgotten treasure. Outside, a cock crows like it owns the village. You sigh. It's time to begin the day, and more importantly, time to start thinking about breakfast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. Bonus points if you're eating something right now, because tonight we're talking about breakfast the hard way. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You push aside a raffia curtain and step out into the compound. No pavement here, just firm, red soil that clings to your toes like gossip clings to your aunties. The compound is alive already. You see smoke curling from several kitchens. Simple outdoor hearths ringed with stones, each tended by women or older girls squatting with practiced ease, mouths murmuring greetings and low songs as they stir pots or slap dough. This isn't just cooking, it's choreography. And it begins early. You slept through the real action. Your mother rose when the stars were still out. By now, the beans have soaked, the cassava's been peeled, and someone's been pounding maize in the big mortar with a pestle longer than your leg. You're the late shift. You shuffle toward the family hearth. A thin trickle of smoke stings your eyes. Perfect. That means the embers are still alive. You squat and begin blowing gently. The red glow responds, flaring as you feed it tiny sticks, then thicker branches. You're not just playing with fire here. You're setting the stage for survival. Because in this world, breakfast is not a grab-and-go smoothie or $8/$5 croissant. It's labor, it's communal, and it's sometimes questionable. Your aunt walks past with a bowl of what looks like wet chalk. You still haven't fetched the water, she mutters, and you realize, yes, the morning always begins with fetching. There's a gourd by the door, still half full from last night, but everyone knows that's for the spirits. Not you. Not unless you want a stomach demon and a scolding. So off you trudge, pot balanced on your head like you were born for it. Which, to be fair, you probably were. The path to the stream is busy already. Boys from other compounds race past barefoot. Someone's goat is bleating dramatically like it's auditioning for a role, and the women ahead of you are gossiping in low tones that carry better than drums. The water is cool, clear, and full of little swimming things. You pretend not to see them. You scoop what you need, slosh it into the pot, and head home, more dignified than when you left, because now you've got purpose. And also 2 soaked ankles, but we don't talk about that. Back at the hearth, the real magic begins. You watch your mother unwrap yesterday's leftovers, fermented millet dough stored in banana leaves. The smell is sharp, sour, and makes your nose wrinkle like a cursed prince in a folktale. But you don't complain. You know better. That's eco, and it's going to be your first bite of the day, if you're lucky. There's a grinding stone nearby. 2 younger siblings are taking turns pushing dried maize against it in circles, chanting softly under their breath like they're summoning something. Which they are. Breakfast. You step in to take a turn, because if you don't help, you don't eat. That's not a metaphor. That's law. You work until your arms ache and your fingers are powdered with white grit. Someone adds water slowly while you stir, shaping the maize into a paste that will soon transform into oji, a porridge that is equal parts comfort and challenge. Fun fact, the Yoruba were masters of fermentation. Seriously, if something could be soaked, soured, or left to bubble mysteriously for 3 days, they'd find a way. This gave their breakfasts a tangy, complex flavor, and also a shelf life that could survive anything short of actual warfare. Speaking of warfare, you glance at the family shrine tucked into the corner of the compound. A bowl of oil sits beside carved wooden figures with carousel eyes. Before anyone eats, someone will offer food to the Orisha, the spirits. If you're the youngest, this job is yours, which means sometimes your breakfast goes to a statue first. Yes, even when you're starving. Especially then. Historians still argue whether every family had their own designated breakfast offering spot, or whether it rotated among households in certain towns. What's clear is this. Breakfast was as much about respect as it was about sustenance. Every spoonful passed through layers of tradition, belief, and storytelling. The sun climbs higher. Roosters are quieter now, possibly because someone finally caught one. The compound smells incredible. Smoke, sour porridge, a hint of palm oil sizzling in a cracked clay pot. Your aunt has added chopped onions and dried crayfish to her pan, stirring quickly while shouting at a cousin to quit chewing on charcoal again. Charcoal's for stomachache, she scolds. Not for snacking. This is not a joke. Charcoal was often used as a folk remedy. Still is in some places. You make a mental note to stop snacking on medicinal items. Your breakfast is almost ready. A gourd of warm, thick oji is handed to you, sweetened slightly with honey if the bees were generous, or not at all if your uncle got stung again and banned beekeeping. You sip slowly, the heat waking something ancient in your belly. It's sour, it's smoky, it's a little chunky, but it's yours. Somewhere nearby, a drum starts up, not a full ceremony, just someone practicing rhythms. You hear a kid laugh, someone shout about a missing chicken, and a baby cry because they've been denied a second helping. You lean against the wall, bowl in hand, belly not yet full, but finally interested in being awake. You've survived another Yoruba morning. Barely. But let's be honest, you probably won't survive the next one if you don't learn how to pound yam without denting your shin. You haven't even finished scraping the sides of your gourd of oji before someone barks your name. No, it's not a call to go play or sit around. This is the summons of the sacred. Time to stoke the fire again. Because even though you already did it earlier, the fire is hungry. Always is. And frankly, so are the people around it. The fire, to your ancestors, isn't just a utility. It's a living, breathing part of the household. Without it, there's no warmth, no cooking, no offerings, and absolutely no breakfast. So you return to the hearth and squat low again, this time with a small pile of kindling and a lot less enthusiasm. You blow, gently at first. A little puff, a little cough. The smoke rises with a life of its own, twisting into the morning sky like it's whispering your family's secrets to the gods. There's something sacred in this moment, even if your eyes are stinging and your knees ache. This is how every meal begins. A spark, some breath, and enough dry sticks to coax the flame into doing its job. The women nearby are already in rhythm. One pounds yams like she's angry at the earth, her pestle striking the mortar with a dull, musical thump-thump. Another grinds beans against a smooth black stone with a circular motion that looks suspiciously like a spell in progress. You join in because, again, no work, no food. As you grind, you start humming a tune your grandmother taught you. Something about a tortoise who tried to cook with no fire and ended up just eating the pot. A cautionary tale, obviously, one of many. Breakfast here isn't just food, it's education, passed through parables, proverbs, and the occasional burnt finger. The rhythm around the compound is intoxicating. There's a certain harmony in the chores. You hear it in the scraping, the pounding, the occasional slap of dough on clay. Everyone has a role, and yours, for now, is to make sure the fire stays alive and that the maize doesn't burn while someone runs off to chase a goat. You add water to the thick paste bubbling in the pot, and the aroma intensifies. Earthy, sour, warm. It smells like patience, like stories, like your ancestors whispering, "You're doing okay," even though your stirring stick just snapped in half. Somewhere across the compound, someone yells, "Ikero," a traditional Yoruba morning greeting. It means good morning, but also loosely translates to, "Hey, congrats on not being eaten by a leopard last night." You respond automatically with a half-hearted "Ikero," even though your mouth is full of smoke and regret. Before you can rinse your hands, your uncle calls you over. He's crouched by a different hearth, cooking something in a pot that smells suspiciously like vengeance. You peek inside, a bubbling mixture of yam peels, onion skins, and what might be yesterday's leftovers, or possibly a small lizard. He's not cooking for people. He's cooking for the ancestors. See, in Yoruba tradition, every day starts with respect for those who came before you. You can't just jump into your porridge and pretend your great-grandmother didn't build this house with her bare hands and a machete. The first spoonfuls, the first drops of palm wine, even the first bites of fried plantain, those go to the spirits. You watch as he carefully ladles some of the mixture into a bowl made from calabash, places it beside the family shrine, and murmurs words you've heard 100 times but never dared repeat. There's a small puff of wind, like a breath from the trees. No one speaks for a moment. The air feels heavier, but in a good way. The kind of heavy that makes you stand a little straighter. Historians still argue whether these rituals were standardized across all Yoruba towns, or whether each family made up their own version. What we do know is that fire, food, and faith have always gone hand in hand, especially in the morning. After the offerings are done, the pace picks up. Everyone knows breakfast has a deadline. Not because school starts at 8, but because the sun will be overhead soon, and then it's too hot to function. So the women slap the last patties onto hot stones, sprinkle them with salt, and pile them into woven baskets. Men start prepping tools for the farm. Children gather around the pots, like vultures with better manners. You get your reward at last, a hot patty of moin moin. A steamed bean pudding made with oil and spice and a texture that's both comforting and confusing. It burns your fingers, but you don't care. You eat it standing up because chairs are for evening and because someone else is eyeing your portion already. Near the entrance of the compound, a neighbor walks in carrying a carved wooden tray with small pots balanced on top. She's offering Iko ajidai, a type of gelatinous cornmeal dish wrapped in leaves. It jiggles like something out of science fiction and tastes better than it looks. You swap her a handful of dried ground pepper for a piece, because barter is breakfast silent side hustle. A breeze moves through the trees. You hear drums again in the distance, this time ceremonial. Someone's naming a baby, which means akara. Bean cakes are being fried somewhere. You briefly consider sneaking over for a sample, but your aunt catches your eye and shakes her head. Not today, mischief maker. You return to the hearth one last time, more out of habit than need. The fire's calmer now, glowing steadily like a friend you can always rely on. The smoke isn't rising as wildly. It curls around your feet like a lazy cat. You sit for just a moment. The compound is still moving, still buzzing with chores and chatter and the occasional insult traded between cousins. But you sit, watching the fire, your belly finally holding more than just hope. And you think about how fire, to your ancestors, was never just fire. It was life. It was memory. It was the only clock that mattered. Your fingers are still sticky from the moin moin when someone presses a warm, leaf-wrapped package into your palm. You know the shape. It's dense, it's hot, and it might burn your thumb a little if you're not careful. Inside is Eco, that gelatinous, slightly sour maize meal, and it's about as firm as a sleeping chicken and just as unpredictable. You peel the banana leaf open. Steam rises. The smell is comforting or intimidating. Maybe both. It depends on how your last encounter with Eco went. Yoruba breakfasts aren't light. There are no croissants. There's no milk latte. If anything, breakfast here shows up like it's preparing you for battle. Thick porridges, root vegetables that fight back when you chew them, fermented flavors that slap your tongue like an angry Annie with a sandal. But you eat it anyway, because this is what survival tastes like. You dip your fingers into the Eco and pinch off a piece. No utensils, of course. You were born with 10 excellent tools already, and they don't need washing. You raise the bite to your mouth and take it in. It's soft, almost too soft, but the fermented tang kicks in late, and suddenly your tongue is doing gymnastics. A whisper of ash from the hearth sneaks in too. Authentic seasoning. A cousin beside you has gone the OG route instead. A porridge made from fermented maize or millet, thinned out and slurped warm. He's swirling his gourd lazily, then drinking in slow, exaggerated gulps like he's doing a taste test for a cooking show. He's smug. OG kids always are. But then, as now, this breakfast staple divided households. Some loved it silky and plain. Some demanded it spicy with added pepper. Others wanted it with a splash of milk if their household kept animals. And then there were the rebels, the ones who mixed in sugar, or worse, pawpaw. Historians still argue whether OG was originally a sweet dish or a savory one. What's agreed on is that by the 1500s, it had become the most common Yoruba breakfast. It traveled well, it fermented fast, and best of all, it filled you up with shockingly little. In fact, Yoruba fermentation skills were so advanced that some archaeologists claim they could rival modern brewing processes, minus the stainless steel. Instead, they used clay pots, gourds, and the occasional old woman who just knew by smell when something was ready. Science? No. Sorcery? Maybe. Accuracy? Always. You swap a bite with your cousin. His OG is piping hot, made from guinea corn this time, darker in color and heartier. You slurp it and cough, not because of the heat, but because it was spiced with Adarodo, the tiny but mighty Scotch bonnet pepper. Yep, your mouth is on fire now. Thanks, cousin. You drop your gourd and reach for water, only to find that the communal pot has been raided by someone who didn't refill it. Probably that same cousin. He's now smirking like a man who has set your face on fire and feels no remorse. You make a mental note to get revenge later, possibly during lunch. Meanwhile, your aunt calls you over to the corner of the compound where she's frying akara, bean cakes made from blended black-eyed peas and spices, dropped into hot palm oil. The smell is outrageous. Crispy, nutty, and just greasy enough to make your fingers glisten like you've been moisturizing with deliciousness. She tosses you one, piping hot. You juggle it from hand to hand before biting in. Crispy outside, soft and steamy inside. You could cry. You might cry. It's the breakfast food of dreams. Even if you only get one. Don't get used to this, your aunt mutters. The beans came from your uncle's second wife's cousin's farm. Translation: this is rare. A treat. A diplomatic bean cake, if you will. Breakfasts like this didn't happen every day. More often than not, it was pap or leftover yam mashed and reheated. But on good days, when trade was strong and the harvest had been kind, the Yoruba table opened up wide, welcoming in delicacies from across the region, like pounded yam, for example, thick, sticky, and served with a peppery sauce that clings to your fingers like scandal. It's not technically a breakfast food, but sometimes leftovers from the night before end up on the morning plate. You reheat it over the fire until it softens again, then scoop it up and dip it in stew, maybe with a goosey melon seed soup, if your family had a good fishing day. You can't forget plantains either. Fried, roasted, or mashed, they found their way into any meal that welcomed them. Sometimes you had them sweet and ripe, sometimes starchy and green, and once, memorably, completely blackened and smoked, as a grandmother claimed. Historians still argue whether that counts as food or just evidence of a kitchen mishap. Your neighbor, an elderly man with a walking stick carved from Irako wood, sits near the fire now. He's drinking hot palm wine, which he swears aids digestion. Is it breakfast? Is it medicine? Is it an early start to an excellent party? Hard to say. Yoruba elders had a way of blending the categories. A spoonful of this for aches, a swig of that for memory. A snack here, a sip there, it all counts. Then there's cassava, dangerous if unprocessed, but miraculous when handled correctly. Your cousin is kneeling nearby, wringing out the moisture from grated cassava pulp in a woven basket. She's making lafun, a type of cassava flour that's mixed with hot water and stirred into a heavy, elastic dough. It's pale, bland, and somehow deeply satisfying. Like eating memory foam, that taste of childhood and charcoal. You sneak a taste before she notices. It sticks to your teeth like gossip in a small village. But it's good. Surprisingly good. It's also a reminder. Even the most humble ingredients, beans, maize, cassava, become complex and flavorful when Yoruba hands work their magic. A rooster struts past you, smug and unaware that it's one bad harvest away from becoming stew. You nod at it with respect. You've eaten its cousin. The sun is higher now. The compound buzzes with post-breakfast chores. Your aunt packs away the mortar and pestle. Your uncle sharpens a tool for farming, and the kids, fed and finally content, begin their daily games. You sit, belly full, head spinning slightly from spice, and you think, that wasn't just a meal. That was an experience. A culinary tightrope walk between sour, spicy, earthy, and glorious. You survived. Mostly. Now, time to lie down and digest, assuming someone doesn't rope you into pounding yam for lunch. You've barely wiped your hands on the grass when someone yells your name again. You sigh, loudly, but you stand up, because breakfast may be over, but its story? Oh, it's just getting warmed up. See, what you just ate wasn't random. It wasn't just whatever someone felt like cooking that day. Yoruba breakfast 500 years ago followed patterns, rules, seasons, taboos. Even taste was political. You glance toward the food storage area, a sun-dried clay structure tucked into the side of the compound, cooler than the open air, but still musty with time. Inside are baskets of maize, stacks of dried fish, ropes of smoked pepper, and bundles of plantains hung like trophies. The real treasure? A pot of fermented locust beans, sealed, and sacred. You don't dare touch it. Food preservation here is an art. Smoke, sun, salt, and spirit all play a role. Maize is ground and stored as flour. Beans are dried until they snap like twigs and root vegetables. Yams especially are kept under thatch covers like VIP guests awaiting their entrance. Nothing gets wasted, not even peels, which may end up in animal feed or, as some whisper, in certain secret recipes for fertility stews. You crouch next to your grandmother now as she pulls apart dried egusi seeds. She's muttering under her breath, not in anger, but in concentration. She sorts the seeds with a method only the elderly understand. By sound, by shape, by some ancestral sixth sense. You try to help. She swats your hand away. Clearly, you're not worthy yet. You try not to take it personally. In the Yoruba world of 500 years ago, the kitchen wasn't just a space for food. It was a classroom, a shrine, a battlefield, and occasionally a gossip hub. Recipes were guarded like war strategies, and certain dishes could only be prepared by certain people for certain rituals at certain times. No pressure. There's a group of women nearby discussing obeata, the classic pepper stew. One wants to add crayfish. Another scoffs and says only smoked fish gives the proper depth. A third swears her grandmother added ground snails. The debate escalates. Voices rise. Hands fly. A chicken runs for cover. It's a full-blown culinary council. Historians still argue whether these early food customs were uniform across all Yoruba kingdoms, like Oyo, Ife, and Ijebu, or whether each town crafted its own breakfast identity. What's clear is that even 5 centuries ago, food was not just nourishment. It was pride, heritage, flavor with a flag. A boy runs by carrying a wooden bowl of oji, sloshing dangerously close to his elbow. He's bringing it to his father, who's sitting by the gate under the shade of shade tree, recounting a dream he had last night. In Yoruba cosmology, dreams are important. If a dream involves fire or water or, God forbid, a white chicken, you'd better make the right breakfast offering before doing anything else. Or else, today's dream was about falling from a palm tree. Harmless? Maybe, or maybe not. Someone whispers that it means you'll lose your standing. Another says it just means you need to drink less palm wine. Either way, the bowl of oji is now officially a peace offering to the dream spirits. Speaking of offerings, your neighbor is roasting yam slices with a seriousness usually reserved for coronations. She says this batch is special. It's to be served with honey and kola nut, a rare pairing saved for visiting guests or spirit consultations. You raise an eyebrow. She shrugs. You never know who's watching. She's right. Yoruba spirituality was, and still is, tightly woven with food. Breakfast could double as prayer. That akra ball you ate earlier? It's often used in offerings to Asu, the trickster deity who controls fate and crossroads. Eat too many, and you might end up tricking yourself into trouble. You walk over to the village edge, where farmers are returning from the early fields. Each carries something: tubers, leaves, wild herbs. And as they approach the compound, they pass a stone bowl filled with dried peppercorns and collarnuts. Without a word, each drops something into it. A tithe of sorts. For community. For continuity. One farmer holds up a strange fruit. Round, yellow, spiky. You've seen it before. It's agbalumo, African star apple. Sweet and sour at the same time, like a cousin you both love and want to shove into a bush. It's not a typical breakfast fruit, but in the dry season, it becomes a valuable supplement. chewed slowly to keep the mouth moist on long treks. You taste one. It's dry, chalky at first, then hits you with a rush of sweet that makes your eyes blink involuntarily. You pretend not to care, but the older women laugh. First time, they say. You nod. It's not, but it's fun to play along. Now the compound smells like roasting, frying, and spice. A midday snack is already brewing. You help grate cassava for lafun, but your mind drifts. You remember that some families, especially in riverine areas, had different routines entirely. Their breakfast might involve smoked catfish, ochre-based stews, or bitter leaf soup, depending on what the river gave and how lucky the nets were that morning. Some scholars believe that the location of a Yoruba household, upland savanna, coastal lagoon, thick forest, shaped not just what they ate but how they thought. That flavor could inform philosophy. That spice could inspire storytelling. And that breakfast could reveal the gods you favored, the clan you came from, or even who you plan to marry. You lean against a tree, watching as your cousin plays a game involving pebbles and quick fingers. He's winning, of course. Probably because he ate the crunchy part of the akara, the lucky bit. You reach into your pouch for the leftover plantain chip you saved. It's limp now. Still good, though. Nearby, a goat sneezes. You make a wish. Someone told you that works. You don't remember who. The sun is high. The fire is low. The air smells like dust and satisfaction. You breathe deep. Breakfast is over. But its story lingers. In every pot, every leaf wrap, every crumb snatched by a chicken. And in your belly, where it settles like a full moon over still water. You're lounging now, half conscious under the low shade of a woven raffia awning, when the smell of palm oil drifting from a neighbor's fire pit pokes your nose like a persistent ant checking if you've eaten. Yes, you've eaten. No, you don't need more. But breakfast in 16th century Yorubaland isn't just what goes into your mouth. It's about who prepared it, when, and what it meant. See, while the flavors dance on your tongue, the real meat of Yoruba breakfast lies deeper in the rhythm of labor, gender, and status. You shift your head slightly and watch your aunt, second cousin, and grandmother swirl around each other in a perfectly choreographed dance of domestic power. The mortar thuds. A gourd is passed. A joke is told with a glance. And three hands slap the same annoying fly at once. They run this place, and breakfast is their throne. In Yoruba society, the kitchen wasn't just where food happened. It was a seat of memory and law. That wooden ladle? Inherited. The clay pot. Smoothed over time by 4 generations of stew. The act of making oji, moin moin, or akara was more than cooking. It was an invocation. Each swirl of the pot whispered, "We're still here. And you're still hungry. Not physically, maybe, but emotionally, culturally, spiritually. Because now you're starting to realize your people didn't just eat breakfast. They crafted it. Each morning was an act of resistance against hunger, against loss, against forgetting. A rooster crows. Again, that guy needs a chill. You sit up slightly, scanning the compound for your grandmother. She's just started roasting peanuts in a shallow clay pan over fire. Your eyes widen. Groundnuts here? For breakfast? Apparently yes. Sometimes sweetened, sometimes mixed into a paste with palm oil and wrapped in leaves. On special days, it became os dudu, a peppery black sauce ladled over starchy staples. You're already imagining it. Spoiler, it's glorious. Not everyone got to eat the same breakfast, though. Your cousin from across the ridge told you stories of households where children ate boiled cassava with palm oil and salt, while their fathers dined on yam and bushmeat stew. Hierarchy was real, and not just in politics. Food flowed through status channels, like a delicious but unjust river. Historians still argue whether this division was strictly patriarchal or more nuanced. Some scholars believe older women in the household actually controlled food access far more than the men did. After all, she who controls the palm oil controls the peace. You stand and stretch, walking barefoot across the red soil toward the grinding stone. There's an art to its sound, wet maize dragging against granite, a low, sticky scrape that's almost musical. It's a sound you'll remember forever, like your uncle's laugh or the slap of someone catching a lizard barehanded. Nearby, your younger cousin is watching his mother pound yam. He doesn't blink. You realize this is his first time seeing it done from scratch. No pre-soaked tubers, no shortcuts. Just raw yam, peeled, boiled, and beaten into submission with a heavy pestle until it stretches like dreams. You kneel beside him. One day, you whisper, your arms will ache from doing that. He looks at you like you've said a curse. Maybe you have. In the Yoruba world, work and food were inseparable. Want breakfast? You better fetch firewood. Want yam pottage? Start pounding. Want akamu? Someone has to ferment the maize for 3 days, grind it, boil it while stirring like your life depends on it, because sometimes it does. One wrong step, and it curdles or burns. And burnt OG tastes like betrayal. You move to help with the peeling of cocoa yams, smaller than yams, but starchier, nuttier, and absolutely worth the effort. They're boiled and eaten with red oil or crushed and turned into a paste to be eaten with soup. But here's a fun twist. Some towns, especially near the forest belt, swore by breadfruit instead. Fried, roasted, or mashed, it was their breakfast MVP. And guess what? Breadfruit is slippery. Like Morley. You pick one up and almost drop it. Your grandmother sees you and chuckles. Hold it like a secret, she says. You're not sure what that means, but you pretend you do. As you clean the cocoa yam, a visiting herbalist arrives. He's old, wiry, and humming a song that doesn't rhyme. He's here to check on a child with nightmares and, of course, to accept his payment. Ekru, a steamed bean paste, and a gourd of honey-sweetened pap. You watch him sip slowly. He nods, approves, declares the child will sleep well now. Probably because Ekuru makes everyone sleepy if you eat enough. This intertwining of food and medicine is no accident. Yoruba breakfast was functional. It healed. Ginger in the pepper soup to clear congestion. Bitter leaf to cleanse the gut. Allspice to wake you up. And if all else failed, there was edible clay eaten for indigestion, pregnancy cravings, or just because the auntie said it worked. You smile, remembering the first time you tried it. You'd expected candy. Well, you got tasted like wet brick, but it settled your stomach. Or maybe it was the fear of disrespecting your grandmother's gift. A breeze kicks up, and the air smells like palm fronds and pepper smoke. Your uncle passes by, carrying a raffia basket full of yams, grunting like a tragic hero. You offer to help. He waves you off with mock bravery. No, I must prove my manhood, he says, nearly tripping over a chicken. You roll your eyes, but grin anyway. The children of the compound have gathered again. They're watching two of their friends play a game with roasted maize kernels, guessing how many are in a calabash before getting to eat them. It's not fair, but it's fun. And maize? That's the cornerstone of everything. Roasted, boiled, pounded, ground, fermented. No maize, no breakfast. No breakfast, no day. A woman from the next compound brings over kunu, a non-alcoholic drink made from millet. It's cold, earthy, slightly sweet. She offers you a cup. You thank her. You sip. You sigh. She winks. Everyone agrees. It's a good batch. One of the kids whispers that she prayed over the grains before grinding. Another says she added a drop of her own tears. Kids are weird. Still, Kuna makes your thoughts fuzzy in a good way. You sit back against a low wall, watching the light bounce off clay pots and barebacks. Everything feels golden. Everything feels earned. And in that quiet, buzzing stillness of a post-breakfast Yoruba morning, you realize something. Food was never just about eating. It was about making and sharing and becoming. Every hand that stirred, pounded, and peeled had a place in the world, and breakfast was how they proved it. You're dozing now, just a little. That blissful kind of half-sleep where your body is full. The sun is gentle, and even the mosquitoes respect your peace. But the smell of charred pepper and faint wood smoke keeps nudging your senses like a nosy ant. And so does the laughter coming from the palm-thatching corner of the compound. You squint. Ah yes, the elders are telling stories again. Not bedtime tales, mind you, but breakfast tales. Yes, those exist. Because in 16th century Yoruba life, the line between a meal and a memory was practically invisible. Stories were folded into food like ground pepper in EFO Riro. Not always visible, but you definitely taste them. You stretch and amble over, barefoot again, toes digging into warm earth. A pot is bubbling over a low fire, and an old man is poking it with a stick he clearly believes is superior to all spoons. He's muttering something about the time he cooked for the elephant himself, and nearly got married because of that okra soup. Everyone laughs, except him. He looks serious. You're starting to notice that storytelling itself is a key breakfast ingredient. Not just because it passes the time while the OG thickens, but because it teaches. The story of the woman who added too much salt and had her bride price reduced. The tale of the hunter who shared his bushmeat stew and got promoted by the king. Lessons delivered with palm oil on the side. One woman gestures to a teenage girl stirring yam porridge. You know what that means, right? She says slyly. She's ready. You raise an eyebrow. Ready for what? And then it clicks. Cooking certain meals well, like a sero, that smoky yam mash with red oil and onion, was once a quiet announcement of marriageability. You sneak a look at the girl. She rolls her eyes and stirs harder. Historians still argue whether these culinary milestones were formal customs or just gossip wrapped in tradition. Some say specific dishes marked a girl's coming of age. Others say that was made up by uncles trying to avoid doing the cooking. Either way, you realize now that in old Yorubaland, every breakfast was a form of autobiography. The ingredients you used, the way you stirred, even who you fed first, it all told a story. Your story. Whether you were a daughter of hunters, farmers, ironworkers, or griots, your breakfast gave you away. You're handed a slice of fried plantain, crispy on the edge, soft in the middle, kissed by smoke. You bite in. It crackles like distant drums. And just like that, you're awake again. Come, someone says, let's go to the market. Because breakfast doesn't end with eating. It continues at the stalls, in the bartering, in the choices made for tomorrow. So you join the group heading to the market trail, a loose parade of baskets, cloth wraps, laughter, and one goat that clearly doesn't want to go, but is being dragged anyway. Along the path, the forest thickens. Shade settles over your skin like cool fabric. Birds call. Somewhere, a frog regrets its life choices. And through the trees, you hear the buzz of the village market. It's not massive, maybe 20 or so sellers, but it's alive. Stalls of pepper, onions, melon seeds, smoked snails, roasted groundnuts. And in the corner, the fermented wonders. Pots of IRU, those pungent, magical locust beans that smell like secrets and taste like wisdom. Not everyone can handle them, but once you do, plain food will always feel like a lie. You help carry back a few wrapped bundles of smoked fish, some herbs you can't name, and a single calabash of odi, a fermented drink reserved for your grandfather. He'll say it's medicinal. Everyone knows he just likes the buzz. Back home, the fire's been reignited. Coals glow, embers hiss. Leftovers are warming up for the second round. A snack-like mini-meal, often taken before heading out for farm work or meetings. Today it's eco, solid pap molded like pudding, served with pepper sauce and a drizzle of palm oil, so red it looks like sunlight melted into liquid. You sit and eat slowly, surrounded by people who eat the same food but remember it differently. One woman says she prefers hers spicy enough to make her sweat. Another swears eco is only proper if eaten cold. A boy dunks his in water. Everyone judges him. You pretend not to. Someone begins humming, then singing. It's a working song, old and rhythmic. And just like that, 3 people start pounding cassava again, this time to make fufu for dinner. Yes, dinner. Already. But even as you think about that, breakfast is still on everyone's lips. Because the Yoruba, 500 years ago, didn't separate meals for moments. Food was continuous, circular, sacred, just like their worldview. The sun rises, the yam boils, the pepper grinds, and the people gather. Day after day, morning after morning, bite after bite, a woman sits down beside you and unwraps a leaf bundle. Inside is something grayish-white, sticky, and fragrant. Fermented maize pudding with a sprinkle of ash salt and a streak of red oil across the top. You lean closer. She sees your curiosity. For my Jibu, she says, only for elders. You don't dare ask for a taste. Instead, you lick your fingers and close your eyes. You imagine what breakfast might be like in Ife, sacred city of kings and bronze heads. Do they eat softer oji? Do their stews carry more heat? Does their smoke smell different? Historians wonder this too. Regional variation in early Yoruba cuisine is a mystery still unfolding. Recipes lost, flavors guessed at, but the core ingredients remain: yam, maize, beans, fire, and time. You lie back and stare at the sky. Somewhere up there, the gods watch, or laugh, or maybe argue over who gets the last piece of planting. You'd like to believe that even Orunmila, the god of wisdom, starts his divine day with something fried, something hot, and something shared. A gust of wind blows a few kernels of maize across the ground. A lizard darts out to snatch one. Life keeps moving, and breakfast, it never really ends. It echoes in the laughter, in the pots still warm, in the hands still stained with oil. It waits for tomorrow. You're not sure if you're still dreaming, or if this is just the post-breakfast haze stretching into your bones. Either way, you're back under the wide canopy of an Yadala tree, fingers sticky with palm oil and pepper, listening to someone grind sesame seeds with a stone smoother than your cousin's pickup lines. The morning's gone golden now, not just with sunlight, but with that quiet certainty that you are full, you are fed, and you are seen. But there's something you haven't asked yet. Something that's been tickling the back of your mind like a yam sprout pushing through dry soil. Where did all this breakfast come from? Not the food. You know that part now. But the rituals, the choices, the timing. Why this meal at this hour in this way? Well, buckle in, because now we're digging deeper into the cultural and spiritual anatomy of breakfast in 16th century Yorubaland. You see, Yoruba time wasn't measured by clocks. It was measured by rhythm, by the songs of birds, the rustle of the palms, the way smoke curled at certain angles before noon. There were no digital alarms, but trust. Your grandmother's broom against the courtyard floor at dawn? That was more persuasive than any iPhone beep. And when you woke, you didn't just stumble into the day. You entered it. With intention. That's where the morning libations came in, pouring a bit of water or palm wine onto the earth with a whispered prayer to the ancestors. Not a religious formality, but a handshake across time. A greeting to those who cooked before you, who pounded yam before you, who burned the stew and still made it to the end of the day. Historians still debate whether these libations were tied strictly to lineage spirits or included offerings to broader Orisha like Ogun or Esu. One theory suggests breakfast libations varied significantly by region and household rank. Another points to the possibility that these rituals were used to signal alliances between families, between gods, even between neighbors sharing kitchen space. What isn't debated? That breakfast was spiritual. Even if all you ate was a scrap of plantain and a pinch of ash salt, you acknowledged something larger than yourself. You weren't just chewing, you were communing. You wander the compound now, and you notice the quiet ways this still unfolds. That one aunt who sings softly while stirring akamo, she's invoking calm. That uncle who refuses to eat until he's washed his hands in river water, he's drawing purity into his morning. And you're starting to do it too. You pause before your next bite. You breathe. You feel the earth beneath you. And you understand something ancient. Every breakfast is a spell. You walk toward the edge of the compound, where a clay shrine sits under a tangle of vines. There's a calabash there, half full of oil, a few kola nuts, and the tiniest roasted yam cube balanced on a leaf. It's an offering. Someone remembered. Someone honored. In Yoruba cosmology, the body and the spirit are tightly braided. You feed both, or you feed neither. That's why food was often part of divination, especially breakfast leftovers. If you cooked for a group and only one plate wasn't empty, people whispered. Maybe the Orisha didn't approve. Maybe someone in the circle was withholding. Superstitious? Maybe. But back then, superstition and survival shared the same hut. A grandmother calls you over again. She's mashing something in a calabash with a wooden spoon. You peek in bananas, crushed roasted groundnuts, and EPO pupa, that glowing red oil. It looks like dessert, but it's a breakfast for children, soft, sweet, and warm. The kind of thing that makes toddlers nap mid-chew. You wish she'd save some for you. She sees your look. Next time she smiles. Lies, but sweet ones. You wander farther now, outside the compound, into the low bush paths that connect homesteads. And here, you catch something different. The sizzle of frying, a soft chant, the smell of ginger. You follow your nose because why wouldn't you? And you find a small roadside stall. A woman is frying discs of bean paste in a crispy akara, laying them onto a raffia tray lined with banana leaves. She's humming. The fire's hot. Her hands move like a river. You offer a greeting. She nods, hands you one. It's hot. You blow on it, then bite. Crunch. Steam. Salt. Magic. You sit beside her. She tells you she's from a fishing village further west. Their breakfasts often included dried shrimp or fish flakes mixed into their oji. They'd boil it with pepper, then strain it and serve with thick eco. It kept you full until the boats returned, or didn't. Her voice is steady, but you hear the weight of memory in it. Breakfasts weren't just about calories. They were about hope, insurance against bad harvests, comfort during mourning. A way to say, we begin again. She hands you another akara. This one has chili in it. You pretend not to cough. You return to the compound in the afternoon glow, your belly full and your mind buzzing. You sit again under the tree, and someone asks you, "What was your favorite meal this morning?" You hesitate, because how do you choose? The plantain? The akamu? The hidden banana mash? The akra with that sly chili? The libation itself? You smile. All of it. And that's the thing, isn't it? Yoruba breakfasts 500 years ago weren't built on choice. They were built on layers. A meal was never just a dish, it was a tapestry. Woven from firewood, ancestor bones, pepper seeds, sweat, rhythm, and rain. You remember a joke someone told earlier. If your OG is too smooth, the gods can't taste it. You laugh then. You laugh again now. Perfection was never the goal. Presence was. And you were here for all of it. You feel the weight of morning sliding gently into the folds of the day. The plates have been cleared. The pots washed. The fire rests now, but the warmth remains. Tomorrow will bring another dawn. Another yam, another story, and another spell made of maize, salt, laughter, and love. The sky is bruising now. That slow, indigo bloom that stretches from horizon to treetop, casting everything in velvet. Chickens have finally decided to stop terrorizing the compound. Children have stopped chasing each other with sticks for now. And the embers of the morning fire sit like tired elders, quiet, still warm, and faintly glowing. You're still here. Somehow, you've stayed through the full cycle, from the soft hush of dawn to the golden hum of midday, and now into the blue hush of evening. And just like that, it's your last moment in this world, this 500-year-old Yorubaland of smoky pots and fermented wisdom. So you sit, and you reflect, because here's something nobody tells you before time traveling through breakfast. You don't just learn what people ate. You learn who they were. You learn what they valued, what they feared, who they listened to, and how they held one another through long mornings and longer histories. Take, for instance, the gender dance of cooking. While women mostly led the food preparation, many households had specific dishes that only certain people could prepare. Ogi, for example, might be a grandmother's secret rhythm, while yam pottage could be a father's weekend claim to fame. Though whether that fame was deserved, let's just say the kids didn't always finish their plates. And yet, historians still argue whether these roles were rigidly assigned or simply practice patterns passed through convenience and trust. One early traveler to the region noted that men were involved in larger food production and sometimes ceremonial cooking, but that daily meal prep was often communal, fluid, and quietly negotiated. It wasn't about authority, it was about harmony. One person peeling, one roasting, another fetching water or watching the pot so it doesn't run away. Which, by the way, is Yoruba speak for boil over dramatically and ruin the entire morning. And speaking of drama, let's talk food taboos. Oh yes, there were rules. Some families avoided snails. Others considered eggs too sacred for common meals. Certain Orisha devotees fasted in the mornings, eating only after a specific chant or gesture. One elder told a tale of how his uncle refused to eat anything that started with a vowel. No akara, no iko, no oji. Just yam. Always yam. Of course, the accuracy of that tale is debatable, but it's part of the point. Stories and food don't need to be true to feel right. They just need to be shared. You stretch out your legs. The ground is cool now. A breeze tickles the back of your neck. You can smell dinner being stirred in the next hut over, but your mind stays rooted in breakfast. In that bowl of corn pap, in the crunch of akara, in the way one old woman tapped the rim of her pot before removing the lid, as if knocking politely to ask the ancestors if the food was ready. That gesture haunts you now, not because it's eerie, but because it's gentle. And how often do you find gentleness built into routine? In the modern world, breakfast is rushed, skipped, microwaved, shoved into mouths during traffic jams, or slurped in front of laptop screens. But here, in this place, in this time, breakfast was deliberate, a choreography of care. Even hunger was honored, because when the food finally came, hot, steaming, and shared, it reminded everyone, you've made it through the night. You're still here, and you're not alone. You get up slowly now. The fire's coals wink at you. Someone hands you a final bite, cold eco, dipped in spicy palm oil. A farewell snack. You accept it, chew, swallow, and you listen. A final rustle of leaves. The hoot of an owl somewhere deep in the bush. The rhythm of a pestle against mortar in the far compound. And your own heartbeat, quiet, steady, full. Because that's what 16th century Yoruba breakfast did. They fed more than your body. They reminded you, you belong. And now, as the night wraps around you like soft cotton, let's let this final memory settle. Let it drift through your thoughts like the smoke from an old clay hearth. Warm, fragrant, familiar. You're still by that fire, toes just barely brushing the ash. The scent of roasted maize lingers on your fingers. The tang of palm, oil still faint on your lips. Around you, the laughter has faded into low murmurs. A lull, a hush, that sacred pause between today and tomorrow. You breathe in. The air is cooler now and slower somehow, like it's also ready to sleep. And the meals? They've quieted too. The yam has been pounded, the beans soaked, the stories told and folded back into memory like well-worn cloth. Even the ancestors are satisfied, blessed by the libations, warmed by the food, pleased with your presence. So let your thoughts soften. Let them blend like oji in gentle hands. Let them swirl like pepper soup steam curling in a morning sky. You are full. You are safe. You are part of a lineage that stretches far behind and far ahead. Connected through food, through fire, through something deeper than language. Tonight, you've traveled far without moving. You've walked barefoot through history. You've eaten from a bowl carved by time. And now you rest. Softly, quietly, held. Sleep well.